Yeah. 7:30. We up? Yeah. Hey everybody. Mason, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Fantastic. Well, I thought we discussed a verse from the Gita today. Here's the verse. Tesham satata yuktanam vajatam pritipurvakam tadami buddhi yogam tvam yena mam upayanti te. I know the verse by heart. I'm just falling apart over the seams over here. Can't get my mic where I want it. Major problem in my life. Let's do that. All right. The verse is one of four verses that are usually read in context or in conjunction with one another. And so the verse, its meaning best comes out in context. We're not going to do that today. We're just going to look at the verse in its own right, because there's something specific I want to discuss. Tesham satata yuktanam. For those who are always yogad to me. But Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. To those who are always yoked and worshiping me with love, who are always yogad, who are always joined to me, connected to me, worshiping me through love, with love. Priti means affection. Bhajatam, worship, from bhaj. That's where you get the word bhakti from. Priti purvakam, according to love. So they're worshiping me endowed with love, and they're always united with me through that love. Love connects people. And it's satata, it's always. For those people, dadami, I give them buddhi yogam tam. I give them buddhi yoga, which is a compound that's a little bit difficult to translate into English simply. To those who worship me lovingly, according to love, who are always connected to me through that loving worship, to those people I give them buddhi yoga. So yoga, again, just indicates a union. Yoga is used to refer to when one celestial body moves into proximity with another one, like in astronomy. So, when two planets come close to each other, that's called a yoga in astronomy. Yoga is used to indicate sex, when two people come together. Yoga is used to indicate a state of self-realization where you achieve a union with either some ideal or some deity, like a stage of perfection where you've achieved an ideal, whether that ideal be a level of realization or a teaching or a deity that you're connected to. Yoga is used secularly. Also, I gave a couple of examples, but it's also used to indicate, when a horse and a chariot come together in a war. Yoga is used to indicate power. Just like a power, an ability to join two things together, like an ability to make something happen. Yoga is used to mean acquisition, like if you acquire something, because you're able to bring something to you Does that make sense? It's a fairly multivalent word in the Sanskrit language that enjoys a variety of usages. And probably the cleanest way to translate yoga would be as union, but in a very broad way. The same way we have union, like we have the United States of America, which means that although we are individual states that are run really like little kingdoms, like little countries, the various states are like little countries. And some states, they have laws that are not there in other states. They're allowed to, run their states as they see fit. But then there's also federal law. Federal law comes into play when people cross state lines, because then there might be two different state laws that you're guilty of, but then the Fed steps in and has their own set of laws. And so some things like murder are state laws. Every state has its own murder laws. Actually, there's a Federal Animal Cruelty Act of 1966 that sets up certain guidelines for how you have to treat animals, but then most states have laws above and beyond that. Sometimes the federal law can be more stringent, like when you're crossing state lines, it becomes an ongoing criminal enterprise. And sometimes kidnappings are federal crimes, because you're taking people from one place to another. I'm not, I don't know all the ins and outs of why states jump in certain places and the Fed jumps in other places. It might be if you kidnap and you cross a state line, it becomes a federal crime. That might be it. But if you look at the way our country's set up, the states have a lot of power. Like Donald Trump, the former president, the artist formerly known as the president, he said, I'm going to enforce this or enforce that, or I'm going to make it illegal to stop people from getting together. I'm going to make federal laws in terms of what's allowed as far as lockdowns go and not, to keep people free. And governors were just like, no, sorry, we don't play. Sorry, we're not going to do that, because the president has serious limitations on what he can do. There is a political theory, there's almost no limitations on what he can do. It's called unitary theory, but that the outgoing Attorney General subscribed to, William Barr subscribed to, but it's an unusual theory that almost nobody accepts. But governors were like, no, we're not going to do that. Sorry, no thanks. Governor Newsom denied, and of course Trump hated the governor, which he hates anyway, because California, all their votes go Democratic, and we're bigger than Texas even, and so we're like a thorn in the side of Republican politics, every 4 years. But if you look at the United States of America, our union, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, that's the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. Actually, it might just be the Declaration of Independence. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution, I guess it's Constitution, preamble, of the United States of America. I guess the Declaration of Independence is part of the Constitution?
Yeah, so
it's the preamble. All right, so I'm just an idiot. The Declaration of Independence is the preamble of the Constitution. So when I said, that's not the preamble of the Constitution, it's the Declaration of Independence, I was saying, that's not 6, it's half a dozen. You follow? You guys didn't get it? Did you get it? That's not 6, that's half a dozen. Do you get it yet? You didn't get it before, right? No, I was looking at your eyes. I can't see your face. I was looking at your eyes and you look bewildered. That's not 6, that's half a dozen. All right, now we're all getting it, right? So, it's crazy, I still remember that. They had it on Saturday morning cartoons. There was a cartoon I used to watch. It would take place in between the cartoons that I grew up watching. And then they would have these little political explanatory and grammatical explanatory cartoons. Like Sesame Street was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Remember that? And then they would pick a number, right? It'd be like 5, 5, 5, and like show you 5 or something. That was on Sesame Street. And then they had like conjunction, junction, what's your function? Right? It would tell you all about conjunctions, They tie two parts of a sentence together. And so one of them was the Declaration of Independence. Anyway, if you look at the United States of America, our states form a union. But it's not an absolute union. So yoga is you possess something. You're able to acquire something. Yoga is also you're able to achieve some state of existence. You're able to acquire that, possess that. Yoga is also you come together with somebody in a particular context. That's why sex is a type of yoga. It's called yoga because two people are physically uniting. Then two stars or planets come into proximity to one another. I mean, they're not actually in proximity. They're in proximity according to from your eye, but according to they might be so far from each other. According to another, everything in the universe is moving. So you got to lock down. It's like in relationship to the Earth, a geocentric model of the world. Then these two planets have come into conjunction, but that's just from where you're standing. They might be further away than ever. But from your vantage point, they become aligned. You follow? But that doesn't mean that they're aligned this way. They could be further away this way. But from your point of view, they're crossing. And so, those are all different types of yoga. So Krishna says here, Dadami, I give you buddhi yoga. Buddhi means discernment is a classic translation of buddhi, maybe from like Sankhya literature. It also means intelligence. It also means enlightenment. Of course, we all know buddhi as the Buddha, the enlightened one. And so Buddha is the enlightened one. It's from the same root. And so buddhi, I give them buddhi yoga. So, with Buddha it would be the enlightened one, but it could also just as easily be the discerning one. Buddha was a semi-atheistic philosopher who was famous from his own followers for his ability to discern truth and speak truth and cut free from the ritualistic religion of the Vedas. Buddhism is actually a schismatic tradition that broke from the Vedic tradition. So like if you look at the last volume of the Dhammapada, a classic text on Buddhism, it's called Who is a Brahmin? Buddha is essentially arguing, you guys aren't Brahmins, I'm a Brahmin. You guys are ritual priests calling yourselves Brahmins, but if a Brahmin is one who knows spiritual truth, Brahman, then I'm actually a Brahmin. Brahma janatiti brahmanaha. It's an old verse that one who knows Brahman is called a Brahman. Short A, long A. One who knows Brahman is called a Brahman. And so one of the chapters, a Brahmin means priest in Sanskrit. So one of the chapters of the Dhammapada is who's a Brahmin? Who's a real priest? Who's a real enlightened one? Who's a real, you could like a Catholic, like the Catholic is called a Pope. Imagine if the Muslims wrote a book and one of the chapters, like the Quran, one of the chapters was, who's the real Pope? Who's the real rabbi? Like the Christians wrote a book, who's the real rabbi? It's very challenging, right? So Buddhism was very challenging to the ritual followers of the Veda, who were and a lot of what he did was challenge what are called plausibility structures, things that everybody just accepted but never really had evidence for. They just accepted them, and so he would challenge those old, defunct, superstitious ideas. Like I'm thinking of, I probably got it from a movie, but I'm thinking of the Mayans. the priests would know when there was an eclipse, and they would tell the people the gods are angry, and they'd have an eclipse, and they'd make them cut off some kids' heads and roll them down the stairs, and then they would say, oh look, now the gods are pleased, and the eclipse would end. But somebody, it's like an emperor wears no clothes kind of situation. Somebody has to come along and say, hey, do me a favor and open that door for me. Somebody has to come along and say, hey, don't kill people. Just chill. Wait 5 minutes. And the eclipse will be over automatically. Doesn't mean anything. You follow? Do you understand? You're spacing out. Do you follow? You got to pay attention. I've asked you several times if you follow. If you're going to be here, follow. Somebody has to come along and challenge that idea that the gods are angry because it's gotten dark outside. And you don't have to kill somebody and offer them ritually and sacrifice to please the gods to end the eclipse where the sun's been swallowed. Just wait 5 minutes. And look at that. It went away all on its own. It's just an astronomical phenomenon. The priests aren't controlling the movement of the heavens. You get it now? You weren't paying attention, were you? That's the problem, right? Don't be here if you're going to space out. Go somewhere else. Come back for kirtan. Okay? You guys following this? Okay. So, a lot of what Buddha did was he challenged the unsubstantiated mores of his time, where people did things just because they were told to, and they followed blindly a ritual religion that was, defunct or based on false premises. You following? You following? Okay. So he was the enlightened one. He was also the discerning one. So discernment as a translation of Buddha is pretty good. Dadami, I give them Buddhi Yoga. So now describe what the two terms mean. I describe what yoga means, and I describe what Buddhi means. Now, what does Buddhi Yoga mean? Buddhi means enlightenment. I define both words for you guys elaborately. I'm not asking you what each word means, am I? Am I asking you what each word means? I am not. So if you tell me what each word means, are you answering my question? You are not. It's pretty simple here. I'm like, 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? So 4 is equal to, and then you guys say 2 plus 2. I'm being really easy here. If you tell me what one word means, have you answered my question? You have not. What is my question, Shri?
What does Buddhi Yoga mean?
It's a compound word. I defined both parts of the compound, and now I'm asking you to add 2 plus 2 and tell me what the compound means. What do you got? Yes?
A discerning connection or intelligent.
A discerning connection. I mean, it sounds like the title of a movie. Like The French Connection, The Discerning Connection. Like, what does that mean?
Like a connection that you don't just make haphazardly, but there's intelligence.
A connection you don't make haphazardly. Okay. So, if you meet somebody at the bus stop, but you go there purposely to meet them, as opposed to haphazardly meeting them, then that would be Buddhi Yoga. It would be a discerning connection that you make with somebody. You met them at a bus stop, but you purposely went to meet them. In fact, let's go with it. As opposed to meeting someone at a bus stop, which would not be Buddhi Yoga, you go to their office to meet them. Very purposefully. Therefore, it would be a discerning connection. That's what I'm led to believe from your French Connection definition. It's a classic movie, by the way, The French Connection. What does it mean? You got to do more than just take the 2 words I said and put them together in a way that doesn't become intelligible. What does Buddhi Yoga mean? You know how I said like the two planets coming into conjunction with one another from the perspective of you? Right? Can you guys imagine what I'm thinking of you now? I just spent 10 minutes explaining elaborately what the terms mean. Now I'm asking you to do just a simple math, putting them together, and you guys are looking at me like the dog at your homework? Can you imagine what I think? Yeah, loud.
Using intelligence or enlightenment to connect or yoke yourself to God.
Okay, that's good. Using your intelligence to connect yourself with divinity, right? So Krishna gives you the ability to use your intelligence to connect you to divinity, right? Is there anything wrong with that? You sort of already possess intelligence, and so you could, by your own free volition, use it to connect to God. So how could God, it's almost like he's controlling your free will, right? Did you follow that critique? You got something new? It's okay. I'm not expecting you guys to answer it anymore. But I do think it's good for you to ask yourselves the question. Because I really labored to make it easy on you guys, and you're still not getting it. Like I said, it's not a term that easily translates into English. Buddhi Yoga in this context means you become capable of discerning and distilling spiritual truth. Your ability to view the world with clarity becomes heightened tremendously. You're gifted with the ability to see much more deeply into the nature of reality. Instead of translating yoga as a connection with God, rather you can translate yoga as a connection with the discernment. Therefore, the word discernment modifies, is best understood in relationship to something that's being united with you. So you achieve a yoga with discernment. You follow? You become, you possess this discernment. Therefore, yoga as acquisition or attainment. Attainment of what? Not necessarily of a union with God here, but with that discernment. Therefore, you achieve this mystic power to look clearly into reality and see the true nature of things. Yena mam upayanti te, by which they approach me. So interestingly, this Buddhi Yoga, your union with Buddhi, enables you to approach or come closer to God. Therefore, to see it as synonymous with coming closer to God wouldn't make sense, because it says, Yena, by that Buddhi Yoga, mam, to me, upayanti, they go, te, they go to me. Did you follow that? So it's the Buddhi Yoga itself is not the synonymous with a union with God. Rather, the Buddhi Yoga is the achievement which makes that going towards, moving towards God possible, because you now have clarity and discernment and enlightenment as your possession, and you can see clearly how to move forward. Did you guys follow that? It's not a simple term to translate, because as soon as you ask yoga, it's like, what things are being united? Krishna says, yoga kshemam vaham yaham. I carry you what you lack and preserve what you have. carrying you what you lack is yoga. I give you what you need. So whenever you talk about a union, it's a question of what things are being united and how are they being united. In this case, Buddha Yoga, I think, would be best understood as you become united with, you come into conjunction with, you come into a confluence with knowledge and discernment and enlightenment. And that now becomes a tool that you have in your toolbox that you can then use to understand divinity. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't think writing is going to help you understand. I think listening really closely is going to help you understand better. That's just my suspicion. You do what you want, but that's my suspicion. So, tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipurvakam. To those people who are always yoga to me, who are always yogad, worshiping me according to love, I give them, Prabhupada translations, the intelligence by which they can come to me. I give them Buddha Yoga by which they can approach me. So Prabhupada just translates this as intelligence. So actually a really clean translation in this context. The yoga is intelligence and you becomes united, and therefore you're given intelligence. You become intelligent so that you can move towards God. I'm wondering about the etymology of intelligence. Int means like going inward, like introspection. So intelligence, I'm assuming, has to be connected in some ways with like an internal state, a state of becoming observant or thoughtful, and in some ways introspective. And that's defined as intelligence, would be my guess. If you looked it up in etymological dictionary, you looked at the verbal root, I'm assuming that's what it is. So even this idea of intelligence that we normally think of as just being, gross computational ability that a person might have. Or I think probably if you look at the history of the term, it was much more akin to an introspection type situation. Did you guys follow that? So I think Prabhupada's translation is good, but I want you to really get a full, I think it's phenomenal. I mean, you can't give a 3-paragraph or a 4-page, you're translating a book, you got to pick one word. So I think it's a great word to pick. I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. I give them the discernment by which they can come to me. But I wanted you guys to, from this class, get a better understanding of Buddha Yoga permanently. And the term yoga and how it shows up in Sanskrit compounds and means different things, so that you would be able to look contextually anytime the word occurs and come up with a best definition of what it should most probably be translated as. Because the word is multivalent, like the word love is in English. And you have to look at the context. If you love a meal, it's different than loving God. It's different than loving your family. It's different than loving a sunset or a movie. They're all, you know what I mean? They all indicate something similar, but there are different meanings of the word, many shades, from, like a light affection all the way up to like an absolute devotion. Does this make sense? I get all my good stuff from Instagram. There's a French philosopher named Albert Camus, recently, in the last century, and he's a big figure in a philosophical thing called absurdism, which is like the idea of the pointlessness of human beings trying to, not really pointless, it's like all we can do, but the absurdness of we who are endowed with logic and intelligence and introspection, and we're trying to screw meaning out of a world which is fundamentally chaotic and has no inherent meaning. And so the absurdism of human existence, our existential predicament, that we are endowed with logic and reason, and we seek to find pattern and truth and reasons and purpose. But we live in a world which is inherently devoid of those things, and therefore we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And so the philosophy called absurdism. It's kind of a subcategory of existentialism. Do you guys follow this? Anyway, he has a famous quote that I just sent to a friend recently. When I was young, I asked more of people than they could give. Everlasting friendship, endless feeling. That's what he was asking for. He was kind of witty the way he wrote, so he would use semicolons and write kind of poetically. So, when I was young, I asked more of people than they could give. Their friendship, their generous actions seem in my eyes to be wholly miraculous. Another semicolon. He's a big fan of the semicolon. A consequence of grace alone. Now I know to ask less of them than they can give. So in the beginning, what was he looking for from people? Everlasting friendship, endless feeling. Right? But that was more than they could give him. Now he knows to ask less of them than they can give. So what's he ask for? A straightforward companionship. Whatever that means, right? It seems very nuts and bolts, right? Like we have some contact with each other. That we on some level go through life together and have some proximity to one another. And then what's the result? Their feelings, their friendship, their generous actions then seem, in my eyes, to be wholly miraculous. When they give him more than what he's looking for, which is his boilerplate, straightforward companionship, then when they give him some feeling, some friendship, some generosity, it seems to be a miracle. A consequence of grace alone. It almost seems like this divine miracle that they give him love and affection and so on and so forth. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting because it subverts the normal cup is half full, cup is half empty phenomenon. Because what he's saying is his cynicism now about life makes him look for a cup half empty. Or like a cup a quarter. Like you know what I mean? Like he's looking for very little. You follow? So he's looking for very little. He's reduced his expectations. And now whatever shows up in that cup beyond like a few drops is now seen to be an act of grace or some amazing thing, as opposed to it never being enough. It's not exactly the cup is half full, half empty. I kind of butchered that, but so forgive me. I'm not as like quick-witted as I think I am, but it does subvert the normal idea of like just see the good. It's not just see the good. It's change your expectation, expect very little from people, and then let them surprise you by giving you something halfway decent. And that halfway decent thing will seem like a miracle and you'll feel blessed. You follow this? Again, it's very in line with his absurdist philosophy that, you know, we're looking for something the world doesn't inherently have. And so reduce your expectations, bring them more into congruence with reality, and then watch miracles happen and you'll find some happiness and some joy. That's his attempt to use discernment to change his perspective on reality and in some ways artificially create a miracle. You follow? But I think there's some truth there. The guy nailed it. I saw the quote and I was like, oh my God. That's a winner, you know? Of course, with Krishna, there is the possibility of an endless life. Endless feeling. Everlasting friendship. Endless feeling is his translation for endless love. But he didn't want to use the word love because it's so ambiguous. So he used the word endless feeling to try to be more concrete and discerning and legitimate. One of my gurus wrote a paper called an endless love. It's about coming to Krishna and finally finding an unlimited place in which to repose your ability to have unlimited love. And you're able to truly find an endless love because you find an endlessly lovable object and an object which is capable of endless reciprocation with your love. C.S. Lewis said, the fact that we want a love which goes beyond anything this world can offer is a pretty good indication that we're not made for this world, that we're made for something greater. He took the same existential dilemma as Albert Camus, and he flipped the script again. You follow? He flipped the script again, and he made the point that your desire for an endless love isn't absurd. It means you should realize that you're made for more than this world, and you should start to look to that world. These are different ways in which theists and atheists use discernment to find meaning and uncover truth that has value, that demonstrates that they're able to look at the world in a unique and genius way. Somebody said, I can't remember who it was, it might have been Einstein, but they say Einstein says everything. You know, like my brother just quoted Einstein to me yesterday, and he's like, Einstein said insanity was doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And I'm like, Einstein never said that. He's like, yes, he did. I read it on Facebook. And so I just sent him, I go, could do me a favor, man. Google Einstein and insanity right now. And so he Googled it, and the first hit was, misquotes from Albert Einstein. Things erroneously attributed to Albert Einstein was the first hit. It originally comes from like a 1982 Narcotics Anonymous pamphlet, 1981 Narcotics Anonymous pamphlet that was then borrowed by a mystery writer in 1983. You know, that's where it comes from.
I also thought that was Einstein.
Of course you did. Einstein said, don't trust what you read on the interweb. Touche. That was a couple of fiancés talking. That's a match made in heaven. You guys are off to the races. The statement was that genius is, you know, like excellence is when you accomplish things nobody thought was possible. Genius is when you think of things nobody even thought thinkable. I'll, of course, figure out who said it later on. I'm avoiding the temptation to get out my phone right now and start searching for it. You know, there's this, like, you know, you do what nobody thought was possible, but they could conceive of it. But then genius is when you knock it up an entire level, you level up, and you think of things that were previously unthinkable. When you look at these thinkers, they challenge even the atheist, even Camus. He challenges the way we look at the world, you know, in a powerful way that really leaves you just seeing through a different set of lenses, seeing more than you saw. That's discernment. That's intelligence. This ability to look at something and look within that thing and see things that evade most people. And when people do it powerfully, that becomes genius. And the ability to take many disparate threads and pull them together and see clearly like what's actually going on, that's Buddha Yoga. And ultimately, because Krishna in the Gita is ultimately behind everything, then a clear vision of reality ultimately brings you to a vision of the deity. There is a unity. There is something tying everything together. You can have an endless love. And true discernment heightens your experience of transcendence. True discernment helps you see Krishna in greater focus. And this isn't a stairway to heaven. You have to do your part, but then what you get from doing your part of trying to connect with Krishna is much more than you could hope to achieve on your own. Krishna blesses you with the ability to pierce through the matrix of this world and to see divinity and to see the path to that divinity and how to take any circumstance and find value in it. Not an artificial value, not a contrived value, not an arbitrary value that you create yourself by lowering your expectations or something like that. But the actual reality of things, that because everything does ultimately stand in relationship to the divine. And you start to see the value of old age, for instance. When you become freed, when you're spiritual, you become freed from lust and greed and anger because your body starts to disintegrate on you while you still occupy it. Right? You're the only one I can talk to about this with, because you're 48 like me. You're 48?
That's 49.
Yeah. That means you're 48. Smart Alec. You're 48 years old and you're still trying to one up me by saying you're 6 months older than me? Come on. You're going on 12? 48 3/4. It's come on, man. Yeah. The blessings of old age. The blessing of forgetfulness. How could we really have free will if we remembered everything that happened to us in every lifetime? It would drive us insane. Even in this lifetime, it would drive us insane. The beauty of not being forced to believe. How if evidence of God's existence was everywhere, and it was undeniably everywhere, then you wouldn't have freedom. You would be a slave to the truth, but not by choice, which would kill the ability for there to be love. You can start to look at everything and see there's value in it. Even the idea of falling in love and and the oxytocin dumps you get in your brain in proximity to people when you fall in love, and the necessity of that to see you through in difficult times, to have been able to create that. You start to see that because they'll see you through, because things aren't always going to be easy. Doing the right thing isn't always easy. Through this buddhi yoga that Krishna gives you, you're able to see the value in everything that happens in life, including the quote-unquote ugly parts of life and the quote-unquote bad things that happen. So, the verse, out of context, with the rest of the Gita, looking at itself as a unit. It has what we do. We worship God with love. And that love creates a receptivity where Krishna can give us discernment to where we can see him everywhere and move further towards him. So there's something you do, there's a gift from Krishna, and then you respond to that gift by stepping even further. And that gift that's given is a gift because you've become receptive. So even if Krishna was always giving it, which he would, and all good God would make that available to everybody, but if he made that available and showed people the truth of how he was behind everything, that would remove their free will. I don't know if you guys saw what I just did, but I gave you examples of being able to discern. I started to look at difficult things in the world. The intoxication of falling in love and how it beguiles you, how there's value in that, how there's value in old age, how there's value in tragedy, how there's value in forgetfulness, how there's value in not being able to clearly demonstrate God's existence beyond a reasonable doubt to somebody. You follow? The things that normally people are like, I wish the world didn't have those things. I'm saying these things are all valuable in the world. One of those, right, was the value of ignorance, the value of a lack of evidence of God's existence in a straightforward way. The verse itself contains within it a presupposition that the ability to connect things with God is not an innate ability of people, it's actually a divine gift. And the question becomes, well, why wouldn't God give that divine gift to everybody? He does. Well, then why wouldn't we have it? Because if you don't become receptive to it, you don't want it, it would then create a slavish mentality on your part and there wouldn't be a value. So the thing I gave as an example of finding difficult things is actually in the verse. It's not just something arbitrary. I'm using like the lens of the verse and look at the world. This is directly germane to analyzing the verse itself. Did you guys follow that? I doubt it, but maybe. Maybe you two did. Did everybody else follow that? The arbitrary example I gave of how you could look out at the world with discernment and find value in it is actually required to make sense out of the verse we just... You guys get it now? Because it would remove your free will. Because it would take away your freedom. So therefore, you love Krishna. You turn towards Krishna. That opens up the door of your heart. Krishna's then able to give you a vision where you can start to see how everything is connected to him. You're able to discern and cut through the mustard and see divinity everywhere. And then you can use that to come even closer to Krishna. Why isn't that given to everybody? It is given to everybody. Why don't we all have it innately? Why is it a gift from God? Because if it was given freely and everybody was forced to accept it, then there would be no free will because you wouldn't be able to avoid the truth. It would be like this ominous, monolithic truth that hung over you like a guillotine and stopped you from being able to do what you wanted with conviction in this world. And so we turn towards Krishna and then we get blessed with this ability far beyond what our own intellect could conceive, with a genius-like ability to find value in the world, to find truth, to find Krishna. You know, I watched a Muslim cleric holding a sword in his hand. It was epic. And he started off, he was giving some nice, it was being translated. I think he was speaking Arabic. It might have even been in Persian, I can't remember. But, Farsi, excuse me. I think it was Arabic. And, the people in his audience, there was thousands of people in the audience, and they were holding AK-47s and stuff. It was a serious tribe of the faithful. And he was giving a speech, and he held a sword in his hand. And he was saying, someday heaven will be on earth. And on that day, the Muslim will be walking, and the stone will speak to him. And the stone will say, hey, brother, the Jew is hiding behind me. Come and kill him. And the tree will speak to him and say, hey, Muslim, come, the Jew is hiding behind me also. Come and kill him. And the guy was just crying, just tears of ecstasy at this point. And he was holding his sword up, and they were firing guns. It was crazy. And he was saying, then paradise will be on earth. Like the whole world will be Dar al-Salam, a house of peace. Because the whole world will be under, Islamic rule. And even the stones and the trees will reveal the Jews to be killed by the Muslims. That's also a buddhi yoga for them. That's also a yoga of discernment. That's also a connection where everything comes to life and becomes miraculously. But the foundation of that is, a doctrine of exclusivism with violence, kind of like intrinsic violence, and that God ultimately deeply desires for you to kill the people of other religions. I mean, Muhammad said as much in the Quran, so it's kind of like a straight read of their text. He said after the summer months have passed, go and kill the Jews wherever you may find them. There's other statements in the Quran which are not quite as heavy, but those statements are there as well. Like you can imagine if the Gita said within it, kill all the Muslims. And then it had a bunch of other great stuff in it, but it said that, you've got some trouble because you got to contend with that straightforward statement. Everybody's looking for this grand universal vision, and then your values determine what that vision might look like. Our vision is a vision where everything brings you closer to Krishna, with no need, no exclusivism, no inherent violence, but where your vision of reality allows you to always be moving closer to Krishna in every circumstance. And that ability to always move closer to Krishna is really a gift from above. When you become receptive enough, Krishna gives you that. It's Krishna's vision of the world. It's the ultimate clarity. And that is bequeathed to you from above, and then you achieve it. We could also say it's innate within you. You are fundamentally comprised of knowledge, but then that knowledge requires to be activated. Or you could say that although you may fundamentally be comprised of knowledge, there are certain elements of divinity which are just fundamentally beyond your grasp, and God gives you those. There's a number of ways you can liaise, but there's something missing. There's a final piece of the puzzle, and Krishna flips that switch or gives that piece of the puzzle. You guys following this? Okay. Anyway, that's today's discussion. I guess I'll wrap it up real quick. The verse says, to those who are constantly devoted to me, serving me with love, I give them the understanding. That's the understanding. That's what Prabhupada uses instead of intelligence. I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. To those people who are yoked to me, yogad to me, through their own efforts of feeling some love for me, some devotion to me, I give them buddhi yoga, this ability to discern truth by which they're able to move ever closer to me in any circumstance. And one of the things that you can discern is that having that ability to discern automatically would actually nullify free will, and therefore there has to be a sense at which you make the first move, otherwise it would take away free will. And this is the blessing of a devotee. It's like the blessing that is given to a devotee. They're able to find an endless love. They find that perfect place to repose their loving propensity. They don't give up looking for endless friendship. They give up trying to screw endless friendship out of this material world. Did you guys follow that? Here's another one. What happens if you find people who have understood the fundamental failings of the material world as selves, as souls, and who've wholeheartedly turned to Krishna? Would they be capable of an endless love for you? That's an interesting question, isn't it? You follow the question? So we can't look at people for endless love. We have to look at Krishna for endless love. But what if there's a tribe of people who've had that realization? Are they connected to each other forever? Prabhupada one time said there will be an ISKCON in the spiritual world. One of my elders, one of my friends, he said, that I realize I'm going to have to serve with all of you forever. So we got to work out our issues. Kind of a nice vision. Of course, you don't also have to serve with everybody. There are different camps. Anyway, that's another conversation. You're all doing the same thing, but even amongst the gopis, for instance, there's different camps. And there's people who you're closer to and people who you are not as close to, even within the pastimes. There's people you feel a special affection for. Okay. I think I'm done. That's it. Thank you. We're going to do kirtan now if you guys want to stay.